10-Minute Jazz Lesson Podcast, episode 69. Hey everyone, welcome back to the 10-Minute Jazz Lesson Podcast. My name is Nick Manella. I hope all of you that are living in the Northern Hemisphere have had a great summer. Can't believe it's coming to an end already, but I guess that's the way it works. Time to get back in the shed over the winter and really put some work in, right? Hopefully you've been working over the summer as well, but winter's really that time to hunker down and learn something new. Today's episode is brought to you by the 10-Minute Jazz Lesson Inner Circle. If you're looking for a tremendous way to get better at all aspects of improvising and support the podcast at the same time, please check out the Inner Circle tab on our website. This is a monthly subscription-based service, and we used to do transcriptions every month and vocabulary, but I've surveyed the Inner Circle members, and they would much rather see some online courses every single month. So we've just released our newest course. This is going to be the first of so many, and this month's course is about triad pairs, specifically major triad pairs. Do you want to try to get this sound in your playing? Or maybe you want to try to get this sound happening. So if you really like those sounds and you're into learning more about triad pairs, the Inner Circle membership is a little bit different than the podcast. On the podcast, I've only got 10 minutes to show you a topic. When you join the Inner Circle, you get the true in-depth lesson that you'd really like to have. And it only costs $10 a month. That's really not that much, especially if you consider what it costs for a private lesson or another online course or something like that. The $10 a month is not really that much, and it keeps us going. You might be thinking, well, somebody else can support the podcast with their $10 a month, but it's you. We need your support in order to keep this thing going. So join up. You get all the fantastic benefits. You get all the transcriptions I've already done, plus every single new course that I'm going to come out with. And we're going to get into some pretty cool stuff. I've got some suggestions from listeners. I've got a bunch of courses that I want to put together. So it's really going to be a great thing. And we really appreciate it if you can support us at all, if you're a fan of the podcast. All right, let's jump into today's exercises. So what I wanted to talk about today was the 5 most common qualities of 7th chord. And then we have a really interesting way of putting these together to create an exercise that's going to get you very fluent through all 12 keys, through all 5 qualities of these 7th chords. So a lot of times what we'll do is this, and this is how I used to practice my 7th chords or chord tones or whatever, was I would take a chord like, let's say, C major 7. Now I would play up and down the chord tones, right? So 1, 3, 5, 7, 5, 3, 1. And then I would go on to the next key, maybe around the circle of fourths, maybe chromatically, maybe in minor thirds, whatever. But I would just go from one key to another. So I'd be playing a 7th chord in C, then a 7th chord in F, then a 7th chord in B flat, then a 7th. And that was great. That taught me a lot. It definitely taught me a bunch about getting rapidly going in between different chord symbols. The only issue with this is that I was moving so rapidly through the keys that I didn't have time to get into one key specifically. And also noticing the differences between the chords and really nailing those down. Like, what's the difference between a C major 7th chord and a C diminished 7th chord? And if that makes you pause at all and try to figure out, what is the difference between those? These exercises for today are going to be for you because they're really going to enlighten us on, immediately, okay, the difference between a C major 7th chord and a C diminished 7th chord is that the 3rd is flat, the 5th is flat, and the 7th is double flatted. And if you don't have that knowledge right on the tip of your brain and right on under your fingers, you can have trouble in a lot of situations, right? Where you might accidentally play the natural 5 when everybody else is playing the flat 5. And that's not going to sound that good depending on the situation. So these exercises are going to be really nice for you. So the first exercise I've got on the sheet, and they all follow the same basic information, but you'll see what we're doing to them to make them harder each time. So the first one is going to be all 5 chord qualities in the same key played by triplets followed by a half note. So the nice thing about this first exercise is that it gives you a little bit of time to think about what's coming next before you have to jump right into it. You've got that entire half note to help yourself figure out what's going on before you go on to the next quality. So you'd play a C major 7, 7th chord with 2 triads. Then you play that half note. Then we dive right into C7. Then we dive right into C minor 7. Then we dive right into half diminished, or C minor 7 flat 5. And then we dive right into a fully diminished 7th chord. And those are the 5 qualities that you're going to see the most commonly. Usually anything else that we see is sort of a derivative of these 5 different qualities. And what you'll notice is we're going from brightest to darkest. So C major 7, big, beautiful, major sounding chord. Then we get into the C7 where we flat the 7. C minor 7, flatted 3rd and a flatted 7. C half diminished, flatted 3rd, flatted 5th, flatted 7. And then the darkest one out of all 5 of them, the C diminished 7th chord. 1, flat 3, flat 5, double flat 7. So let me play this exercise for you. Remember, it all stays in the same key, so different than you may have practiced this before. Here's exercise number 1. So you can hear it gives you a little bit of time to think in between each chord. The other advantage to this is that you're hearing a bunch of different qualities of chord back to back. Instead of just hearing the same quality of chord move throughout the keys, which is a very important sound, that's why we've worked on it in the past, now you're really changing things up and you're hearing 5 different chord qualities played in rapid succession, which is a whole nother thing to try to wrap your ear around. So in exercise number 2, what we're going to look at is anytime we practice something in a triplet feel, we also want to practice it in sort of a duplet feel. And this is going to accomplish 2 things for us. So instead of playing triplets, we're going to play just regular old eighth notes. And the other thing that it accomplishes is it gives us less time in between the chord qualities to get on to the next one. So now instead of having a half note to think about what's coming next, you only have a quarter note. So you're starting to get your brain to work a little bit more quickly in this second exercise. It's basically the same exercise. We're just playing the same thing, but we're playing eighth notes instead of eighth note triplets. So it should sound exactly the same with a few rhythmic differences and less time in between. But here's what this one sounds like. And, you probably have figured this out already, but you don't want to really practice this with the sheet in front of you, except for when you're learning it initially, right? Because you might be going, oh, these exercises are really easy. Yeah, but are you reading them off the sheet, and are you trying to do it in all the different keys? That's going to be the really hard part. All right, so here's exercise number 2. So a little bit less time, a different feel, all the kind of stuff we want for a successful exercise, developing flexibility as we play. So now the third exercise, again, it's the exact same thing as exercise number 1, but no half note in between. So you're changing things on the fly, no resting in between the different chord qualities. It's just one, then another, then another, then another. This is obviously the hardest one to wrap your brain around, but once you get to this point, you really know that you understand what we're trying to cover here. Here's exercise number 3. That one's really hard. That one still kicks my butt all over the place on a daily basis, because it's just a lot of information in a short period of time. But that's what playing jazz is all about, being able to rapidly switch what you're doing as the chord changes, as different things happen. So a really, really great exercise. Definitely will challenge you probably more than almost anything that I've ever given you on this podcast. That third exercise is really, really tough. All right. And one other thing that I'll tell you is that what I write out, I have like sort of a matrix on a piece of notebook paper where I write out the different chord qualities so that I'm not actually looking at them written down on a piece of manuscript paper. I'm just looking at the chord symbol and then trying to do the exercise on over the top of it. So that could be a good thing. You could write out all 5 qualities of chords in all 12 keys and then try to get through that matrix every day or every week or whatever is the right pace for you. Okay? So that's going to about do it for today. Hope that was helpful. Send any questions to 10minutejazzlesson@gmail.com. And please consider joining the inner circle. We could really use your support. On top of getting 4 free episodes of jazz instruction every month, you're also going to get 1 to 2 in-depth courses on different topics every month, and we would really appreciate it. Keeps the podcast going. All right, we'll see you next week. Have a great weekend, everybody. Talk to you soon. Bye.